This Sunday will mark 6 months since Hamas conducted its deadly terrorist invasion on Israel. In the immediate days and the weeks following those attacks, we witnessed unity in Israel, as they watched an incredible attack, an existential threat on their country. But now, 6 months later, as much of the world, including the Biden administration, turns on Israel, we're seeing a rapid erosion of unity and support. Is that also happening in Israel? Well, joining me now to discuss this from Jerusalem is Chris Mitchell, the Middle East Bureau Chief for CBN News. Chris, welcome back to Washington Watch.
Great to be with you, Jody.
Well, thank you. Listen, I played a clip at the opening of the show. I want to play another one here. This is Secretary Antony Blinken yesterday. Let me play this and get your remarks.
Israel is a democracy, Hamas a terrorist organization. And democracies place the highest value on human life, every human life. If we lose that reverence for human life, we risk becoming indistinguishable from those we confront.
Okay, so Chris, what do you think? How have these kind of remarks coming from the Biden administration been received in Israel?
Well, Jody, I think a lot of people feel that comment by Antony Blinken was offensive to many Israelis. They feel there's no comparison between them and the way Hamas has conducted this war. Israel has been doing since the very beginning, and what they do in all of their conflicts, do what they can to protect civilian lives. Even though there tragically have been Palestinians affected, killed in this war. And I would add that the figure of 33,000 Palestinians, many people over here, is inflated by Hamas for propaganda purposes. But to compare the way that Israel has conducted this war by trying to alert civilians to get out of harm's way, by using leaflets, by sending text messages, by making phone calls to get out of a war zone, is sometimes many people, military historians say, would be unprecedented, that the IDF actually telegraphs exactly what they're going to do and actually puts IDF soldiers at risk. And I know I've talked to some Israelis here, and they know that their sons or daughters could be in harm's way because of the way the IDF conducts its mission.
Yeah, it really is remarkable the steps that Israel goes to try to prepare the way. And yet we see this shifting taking place around the world, certainly here with the Biden administration. Is all of this kind of putting the prime minister in a corner? What's kind of his path forward in all of this?
Well, it's very difficult. I was asking somebody we interviewed on our program earlier today. I said, is this sort of Benjamin Netanyahu's Churchill moment? He said, well, he actually called it a Judah Maccabee moment. If you remember, the Maccabees revolted back over 2,000 years ago. And I think a lot of Israelis and many Jews around the world think this is a time when Benjamin Netanyahu really has to make a decision for the state of Israel, for the Jewish people, whether or not they're going to submit to sort of the dictates of the United States or actually have to go it alone. They do feel isolated right now and alone, but I think they also feel resolute in the sense that they believe that there's no way that they can lose this war. There's no way they can allow Hamas to remain a viable entity in the Gaza Strip. And they remember October 7th, when 1,200 people were murdered, when over 200 were kidnapped, and many of those are still left in Hamas captivity. Jody, just a number of weeks ago, I was in Khan Yunis, and I got to go into one of those tunnels and actually saw the labyrinth almost over the length of the London subway, and just the spider web throughout all of Gaza. And in that particular tunnel, there were 12 hostages that were kept, 3 that had been released. But they know, they meaning the Israelis know, that they can't afford that Hamas would win this war or not lose this war. They see as existential because they're not only fighting Hamas, they're fighting Hezbollah up on the north, the Houthis, and the head of the snake being Iran itself.
Well, I know that you know this, Chris, but there are millions here praying and supporting Israel. They feel alone, and in many regards they are, from what's happening in nations around the world, but they are not alone, and there are many of us praying and supporting them. What is the on-the-ground perspective of the political climate there in Israel right now?
Well, first of all, Jody, I would say, they understand that evangelical Christians, particularly in the U.S. and around the world, are really standing with them, praying for them. That really gives them a boost because they really do feel isolated, and particularly more so now than the U.S., traditionally Israel's greatest ally, seems to be turning its back on them. The political climate here, I would say, is pretty steadfast in the sense that they see that they want to rally around Prime Minister Netanyahu. And the reason I say that is we also see a concerted effort, it seems, and this is what I've been hearing over here, Jody, a concerted effort to undermine the coalition government of Benjamin Netanyahu. And a number of Israelis on the left side of the ledger, they may not agree with Prime Minister Netanyahu, but they certainly agree with the war goals that the war cabinet has. And they certainly don't want the U.S. to try to undermine through a number of steps, including the speech by Senator Schumer on the Senate floor. They apparently, Benny Gantz, who's one of the political opposition leaders, he called for new elections just a couple of days ago. Many Israelis don't want that. They don't want new elections right now, certainly in the middle of a war. And so I think the political climate, and I would say in the last few days, that some of the divisiveness that was before October 7th has emerged a little bit. But I think there are other Israelis that are saying, listen, we're in the middle of a war. We can't afford elections. And we certainly don't want to be undermined by other countries that want to come in and dictate what happens politically here.
Yeah, I can't imagine what handicap would result if there were new elections in the middle of a war. I mean, that would be devastating, wouldn't it?
Oh, definitely. And right now, I think Israelis militarily, they seem right now they're on the cusp of maybe trying to eliminate Hamas or at least defeat Hamas in the Gaza Strip. And that would be the remaining 4 battalions that are burrowed in the many, more than 1 million refugees there in Rafah. So that militarily is the next step in Gaza. But also, Jody, Israelis are looking at the northern border as well. Hezbollah, a much greater enemy, a much larger arsenal of missiles and rockets. And right now you have about 80,000 Israelis that are up there that have left their homes, their livelihood, and they're living in hotels, even here in Jerusalem. And so you really have a whole zone right there on Israel's northern border that almost 100,000 Israelis have left. They know that somehow they're going to have to deal with that after they deal with Hamas in the Gaza Strip.
Well, we are on this end continuing to pray for and support Israel, and all of you, Chris, who are in the midst of all of this. We were calling for a specific effort coming up on Pentecost Sunday for prayer and support all across America. We will continue to do all we can. Thank you, Chris Mitchell from CBN News. Always great to talk to you, and your insight is so valuable. Thanks for joining us on Washington Watch.
Thanks so much, Jody.